So welcome back. The previous two videos, the first one was into the air ASAP. Second video was a ZiptieAI overview. And in this video, I want to go through Epic 1, build and fly an FPV drone. And this is Epic 1. Now if we look here in the wiki organization on this page, what it says about Epic 1. What makes building and flying your first drone so difficult are confusing tools, hodgepodge of technologies, components from China, and a surprising lack of basic documentation. And that's not an understatement. So it's good when you're building your first FPV drone to make it to build your first drone. It's an FPV drone, not a Pixhawk, because an FPV drone is going to be a lot simpler, should be, and there's a lot of things to learn. So the first thing I recommend is getting on an FPV simulator, and I totally ignored this when I started. In fact, I was so smart that when somebody told me about a Ukrainian pilot of an FPV in Ukraine, was a good pilot was very, very important. I thought, what's it take to pilot an FPV? I thought it was no big deal. And then I started crashing. As you see here, I started crashing my drone on a regular basis, and I guess I have to learn the hard way. So I looked at the simulators, and I'll show you a picture. This is a simulator that I found, a pretty good simulator to explain the problem. So when you are, there are basically 4 different things you have to control with your 2 fingers or thumbs. You have the left stick here in the simulator. It's showing you. Now, in this simulator, I actually have my actual RC controller with the sticks is actually connected to my computer. So I'm using my RC controller. And if you move the left stick up and down, up means more thrust, down is less. Right, left means right means your copter turns clockwise, left means counterclockwise. And then this stick on the right, if you move it up, that means point the nose down. And if you move it down, it means point the nose up. And then here, this right stick, if you move it left, it means roll. That means the left side of the copter goes down, the right side goes up. And if you go here right, you roll right, that means the right side of the copter goes down. And this, when you're flying and when you want to turn, you want to do anything, you have to be able to control. You have to have the instincts to do all this automatically. And you can learn a lot of this in a simulator. And so I think maybe 15, 20 hours of simulation before you fly your first drone. So, and this is what I did. I made a mistake. Well, that's basically the simulator. And so I think there's nothing in the Gdrive. I don't have any Gdrive documents. But if you look on the simulator page, liftoff, I paid $20. I think the license is 1 year or it's permanent. I paid $20 and installed it. And the details are here. It's kind of complicated. These simulators are not really made for beginners. They're made more for racers and stuff. So, okay. So now you train on the simulator. And then what you want to do is you want to build one of these 3 copter variants. This SB means Speedy B. F405 is the processor that it's using, the microcontroller. And iNav is a firmware. BF is Betaflight. Autopilot is another firmware. So you want to choose one of these three combinations here. I've done Betaflight first. And there's one document here showing how I followed a video, a pretty good video, when I did it. So this is the one I would recommend. Now let's go to this page. Right. When I did it, I first made a plywood frame and put all the components on the frame, and then flew it in my kitchen. I think when you're first putting things together, when you do it that way, it's easier than trying to squish everything together on a frame like this. And even after I went to a carbon fiber frame, see here is in this minimal viable platform, I went with a test rig right here. Okay. But then later I switched to a carbon frame. And okay. So even when I went to this carbon frame, I still added a piece of wood at the bottom so I could make more space for myself. So, and this is the GPS on the end, and this is the antenna, the receiver from your RC with the sticks. So the first thing is, when you're going to make this, you got technical overviews. I think there's only one. It's technical overviews. Then you're going to make the minimal viable platform for your indoor flight. And what that means is you've got a lot of things you got to take care of when you're making your first flight. And so this is the absolute minimum to get something in the air. So I made a test rig. Now, in your situation, you could just go with the standard frame, because there's a lot of trouble to make your own plywood frame, but I thought it was interesting. And then talks about the batteries. Now, you're learning how to use these batteries was really confusing and a bit scary, because there was very little documentation about how to charge these things. These are very high amperage batteries. All the videos that I saw, no one focused on this, like the safety of the batteries. So I'm sure you see videos of battery factories catching on fire, of battery-powered cars catching on fire. I just don't like dealing with batteries. I'm not as brave as a Tesla owner. I don't like sitting on a big battery even. I don't like messing with these small ones. So, and then after that, you got the peripherals configuration, and this is a big thing right here. This is where you're trying to configure, like I showed you a big diagram of this before, about everything you have to set up so that the controls, when you move these on the RC, that they will send the right command to the flight controller. So you've got to set up this connection, this wireless connection between these two things. It's a very complicated setup. It took me 3 days. It was 2.5 days. The documentation was terrible. The tools were bad. It was very complicated. And then after you get that, you've got to install the iNav, that's the firmware, onto the SpeedyBee processor. And you're going to do that using iNav Configurator, which is a pretty good tool. It's much better than the tools you have for Pixhawk, which is one good reason to start with FPV. So, but it is a bit involved. And I believe, yeah, the documents are all here. So there's several documents here about that. And then after you have that, you're going to come in and do a test flight. And this is how I flew it in my kitchen. And that's, you got it tied down. You've got this heavy frame. I had small props on it. And it's just really nice when you're doing your first flight, if you could just do it in the comfort of your own home. You're not out in a field somewhere. It's really scary when you're making your first flight. And these are really powerful little motors on here. And for me, it always makes me nervous when I was during my first flights and kind of scary. These things, you're always afraid they're going to get out of control. It's like when you first time you drive a car, that you're just really afraid you got to control this massive device. So anyway, that's the minimal viable platform. Then you're going to want to install the GPS. So, okay, GPS, little device there. And then the video. So the video is here in this diagram. There's a bunch of notes here. I have a bunch of notes for myself. But my original video that I bought went bad. But anyway, this explains how I configured the video. And rather than buying goggles, I bought a really cheap, I think it was 60 bucks. And here's my VTX. This takes video from the camera. Here's the camera on the device. And then it sends it wirelessly to goggles, but in this case I use this screen, this little device, not goggles. So you get the video running, and then what I did is I switched to a carbon frame. And where is that? Yeah, right here's a document. Yeah, I haven't documented that yet. It's not in a separate document. And after the carbon frame, I went out and tried to do missions. And that was a major disappointment. I had heard one reason I wanted to use iNav over Betaflight is iNav has missions. But the missions is so badly designed. The user interface is a disaster, and I couldn't get it to really work. It did fly a mission, but it ended up flying into the ground. It's very strangely organized. It's really difficult to understand how they've done these missions. Maybe I'll figure it out and document it later. Then I haven't done anything on this, but tuning is a big deal. Tuning means tuning your copters so that it's easy to fly for you. If you're a new person, you don't want a copter that's like a race car that really turns tight, and really does things. You want something stable, most of all. But if you're experienced and you want to race, then you're wanting like a race car. You can change the settings in the firmware. There's some variables in there. You can change those to do that, and that's something to do in the future. Then what I have to do is I crashed my vehicle. I crashed it one day, and it was a wet day, and anyway, the motors got messed up, and it's like one of these ESCs, this is a part of your copter, you'll understand this stuff after your first build, went bad. And some of the wires got cut, the blue wires here. So I've taken this apart. I'm going on here's a view of what went bad. I'm going on vacation in about a week. I spent some time in probably Poland and Ukraine. And so I didn't want to bother fixing this right before I left, and I wanted to do these videos. When I get back, I need this part here This is the stack. The top of it is the actual flight controller, and the bottom is the ESC. The ESC allows the flight controller to send commands to the ESC that controls how much power, how much current goes into the motors. And you'll appreciate how powerful these motors are the first time you fly one. So when I get back, I need to probably just buy a whole new, what they call a stack, and fix this. And anyway, that's pretty much Epic 1. And it really is an epic. Once you get this done, and you are actually flying your own copter in the air, that is a fantastic feeling. But it takes a long time, and even the best video that I reference here for INAV, he left core things out. He left all kinds of important things out. And in my Word documents, I'm going to have all the details. I still need to clean them up, though. So, good. And that's it for this video.